Now, securing the border is ultimately one of the most important responsibilities of the federal government. The instability and chaos that drug cartels foster pose national security problems and public safety threats that endanger border communities. In fact, later this month marks the 6th anniversary of the death of Robert Krentz, a Cochise County resident slain on his ranch roughly 30 miles north of the border. In southern Arizona, we are impacted by border insecurity every day. Property destroyed, militarized-like checkpoints on our roads, and the fear of violence from transnational criminal organizations, or TCOs, running drug loads through our communities. The reality and perception of insecurity near the border also has negative impacts for businesses and tourism in border regions, suppressing an already struggling economy. And the very same pathways and smuggling routes that facilitate the illicit flow of people and drugs could also potentially be used for terror, making it critical that we quickly gain control of the situation along the border. While progress has been made on the border over the last 25 years, there's much more work to be done. There's a reason many Americans do not trust the department when it comes to border security. They rightly worry that the department will twist the numbers and give a false sense of security. Border security measures recently put out by the department will do little to overcome this deficit of trust. Customs and Border Protection reported that it was 81% effective on the southwest border last year. That sounds impressive, especially when compared to previous measures that indicate around 44% of the border was under operational control. These new effectiveness numbers are hard to believe, and I believe are inaccurate measures of the state of security on the border. The new interdiction effectiveness rates include unaccompanied children and families from countries other than Mexico who turn themselves in, inflating that number. It also fails to take into account the number that Border Patrol never sees, or the denominator, which also inflates this effectiveness number. The best analytical research, using all available data on interdiction effectiveness, puts the true probability of apprehension much closer to about 50%. Finally, the numbers don't tell us where the illicit activity was intercepted, which can sometimes be 100 miles or deeper into the U.S., putting border communities in danger as traffickers transit our communities before they're caught. There are probably no better indicators of the effectiveness than the price and availability of illicit drugs. We have an alarming drug addiction epidemic in this country, and it's only getting worse, impacting communities and families across the nation. Families grappling with tragedy tell heartbreaking stories of how their loved ones fell into addiction and how cheap and easy it was for them to get these illicit drugs. The price and availability of these drugs across the country demonstrate they still move across the border with relative ease. We must move beyond the political rhetoric that on the one hand says the border is out of control, while on the other hand says it's more secure than ever, and everything is just fine. But the only way to do that is being transparent when it comes to security on the border. We all know the truth is somewhere in between, but the American people don't know where in between it is, and so that just adds to the challenges and the frustrations. The truth is, we've been given an incomplete picture as it relates to the situation on the border, and we cannot verifiably say where, between those two ends of the spectrum, we actually are. That's the heart of the problem. For too long, the U.S. government has pushed the narrative that because we catch a lot of people, or in some cases, not many at all, or have doubled the number of agents, or built miles of fence, that the border must be secure. That is just activity masquerading as effectiveness, and lacks the important denominator. The Border Patrol cannot determine how many people we are not catching or detecting. Assessing if the billions of taxpayer dollars spent every year are actually effective at securing the border is a more productive and transparent way to look at border security. Can we stop drug cartels from moving their poison freely across our border? Is CBP catching the overwhelming number of people who cross the border illegally? And not just the ones they see. What about the ones we don't see? Of the illegal activity detected, how many were never caught? Of those apprehended, how many were within a half a mile of the border? How many were up to 25 miles? How many were up to 100 miles? This actually matters because if you're living in that area, where it gets caught actually impacts the public safety concerns for you and your family. What about the flow of weapons and money that goes south across the border to fuel the TCO's illicit activity? Do people along the border feel safe? How much of the illegal activity is detected and caught by state and local law enforcement versus CBP? Do border, state, and local first responders assess that the border is secure? What's the actual effectiveness of the checkpoints placed well inside our country? What percent of the 1,954 miles of southern land border does CBP have 100% situational awareness of, where if something or someone approaches or moves across the border, they'll see it? This is a question I've been trying to get the answer to for a very long time. And what percentage of those miles do they have operational control of, where agents can successfully interdict the activity once it's detected? Are the census towers and checkpoints, unmanned aerial vehicles, manned aircraft, are they assisting our agents to further these goals? Those are the real measures of effectiveness the American people can understand and need to know. I believe today's hearing is a first step we must take to continue to develop a complete understanding of what's actually happening at the southern border, commonly known as situational awareness. We use this term a lot in the military, by the way, and its acronym is SA. How is your SA? Is your SA high? Is your SA low? You know, what percentage of SA do you have? Achieving situational awareness will require extensive use of technology. The border is too long and the terrain too rough and inaccessible in some places to be everywhere at once. But it'll also take concentrating our agents closer to the border and rapid reaction forces to quickly move agents to intercept the activity once detected before anyone becomes a public safety threat to our communities. It boils down to this. Do we know where the drug cartels are beating us so we can adjust deployment of our technology and agents to meet that threat? If the answer is no, we don't have situational awareness along the border. Once we fully understand the threat and the gaps in our awareness and our capabilities, we can move quickly together to address them. But without that, we're essentially flying blind. And as a pilot, no one wants to do that. And that cannot continue. The time has come to adequately measure situational awareness and effectiveness so we know where we are and, more importantly, where we need to go. I'm looking forward to hearing from our witnesses today on CBP plans to achieve situational awareness on the border and provide Congress with suitable metrics. The Chair now recognizes the acting ranking minority member of the subcommittee, the gentleman from New York, Mr. Higgins.